Yeah, very excited to speak to everyone today about how to attract and retain top talent. I'm joined by, and I'll introduce him properly in a bit, someone that, I definitely call a friend in Sam Fromson. Is a very wise person and someone that, I've lent on before in the past in relation to this topic. So very excited to kind of talk to all of you today about this topic with him and share some of his wisdom. I'm going to give it 30 seconds. We will record, and that doesn't mean leave and let your note taker do the work. Please hang on in here with us, because I promise you that the experience, the real life experience, is the worthwhile one. And I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping, and so maybe I'll crack on and do that, and then I'll introduce Sam, and we'll start to kind of roll through the content that we pulled together for you all today. So first of all, I want to kind of introduce Small Business Matters, which is a new event series that Charlie is collaborating on with a bunch of partners. And this is the first, so I really appreciate all of you that have joined us today. I guess at Charlie, there's something that is very core to who we are, which is the importance of small businesses, right? Running a small business is incredibly difficult. It's incredibly hard. And we want to make it as easy as possible for those businesses to thrive and sometimes survive, right? The last couple of years have been challenging. And so anything that we can do to put resources and content out there and put the right partners around people is really, really a core of that. So we're going to be beginning today with Yulife, but over the next 12 months, every month there will be a Small Business Matters event where we'll feature someone that we also know really cares about small businesses and is really passionate about small businesses. Always free, actionable insights, and hopefully interactive sessions so people can get value from the kind of insights that we're sharing. Please, as we go, ask questions. There's the meeting tools button on the right-hand side of the screen. There's a Q&A feature. Please drop some questions in there as we go. Upvote them as we roll through, because we will have time at the end to jump into those questions. We want this to be an interactive session. We've got an hour of Sam today, and so we want to basically make that as valuable for you as we possibly can make it. Before I kind of introduce Sam and we talk about today's topic and the agenda that we're going to run through, I want to talk about the kind of insights that are kind of driving this, which is Yulife's report from 2025, which they did in partnership with YouGov, which is called What Employees Want. I'd really, really highly recommend people give it a read. There's a QR code on the screen. We'll circulate this deck afterwards. But if you want to snap it, do so now. It's a wicked report. There's loads of great value in there. And it's one of the reasons why we've got Yulife involved in today's event and why they are always a partner of choice when our customers ask us, who should we be speaking to when it comes to employee benefits, when it comes to things like health insurance, when it comes to things like, what's that group of benefits that we can put around our team? Yulife is always where we point people because of their commitment to the cause and I guess because of their belief and that they share with us on how important it is to support small businesses. So I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, but I'll do it now. My name's Ben. I'm Charlie's longtime suffering CEO. I joke. It's a great job. I love it. I'm joined by Sam Fromson, who's co-founder and COO at Yulife. Sam, I'll shoot to you. We said we wanted to keep this conversational and interactive rather than just us reading off some slides. So I'd love if you can, in a kind of short way, summarize for us a little bit about, who Yulife are, but I think more importantly, like why you founded it and what it is about Yulife's mission that gets you up every day in the morning.
Thank you very much for that intro, and thank you for many years of friendship, mentorship, and going on this adventure together, building businesses, and doing our best to help the community of small businesses as we go on that journey together. So thank you for having me here today, and really thank you all so much for taking an hour out of your lunch breaks to listen to the two of us chat about something that we both care very deeply about. Really a pleasure to be here. Background, I'm Sam, nice to meet you guys, co-founder, CEO at Yulife. We create insurance products, all-in-one benefit solutions for companies that reward people, that inspire people, and that look after people. Ultimately, what we're trying to do in the people roles is look after our teams, give them something that matters, give them something that makes their lives that bit better, give them benefits that make a difference to them every single day. And that's what we build at Yulife. And that's what gets me out of bed, really. We've been on this adventure now for 8 years of creating insurance products and benefits that make people's lives that bit better and inspire them to live a life of health and well-being, being there in the good times when we can be that boost in their day, rewarding them for everyday healthy habits, and then ultimately looking after people when they need it most, be that at the point of a claim or at the point of leading to an illness or whatever it might be. And that's what the Yulife tool set is there to deliver to businesses. Thankfully, we work with thousands of small businesses across the UK, some big businesses as well, and it's a great mission to be on. My background, personally, where did I start off? I started actually in the world of finance, so a bit away from insurance and benefits, but fortunately left that world and made a transition into the world of fintech and supporting businesses, growing first a business that was in the financing space for small businesses, cash flow support, loan support, and then 8 years ago founded Yulife with my co-founder Sammy, who had experience from the world of vitality, who some of you might be aware of that business, and we've been building Yulife ever since then. It has here on the slide that I'm a practicing rabbi. I generally don't mix that as much into my professional life, but Ben and I often talk about spiritual things or religious things as well. And I am also, it's true, I'm a practicing rabbi. I am the rabbi of a community in Golders Green, which I've also been doing for about 10 years now. And it's a beautiful blend. Again, you get to see like everything kind of sits in context when you're there supporting people in pastoral ways. If you're there officiating at a funeral, you get to see very much firsthand what matters to people at times of crisis and what times when they really need that support on a deep personal level. And I hope I'm able to take that insight from supporting people in that way into the business world as well, of what we're building at Yulife and what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, lovely intro, and I think it really goes to the core of kind of who we are as a company in terms of the type of organizations that we like to partner with, which is that business is human. Every day we all show up with our teams and the groups of people that we try and do hard stuff with, and then we're interacting with humans, and we want to partner with great humans and great organizations that I guess see business in the same way that we do, which is that human component. And I think Yulife have always been and Sam as part of it have always been one of those partners that really stand out in the field in terms of the way that they look at things. And so we're going to dig into that a little bit today. So agenda, we're going to talk about the impact of poor workplace well-being, the current state, what employees really want, and that is shifting. I'm sure there's lots of you out there that are seeing that shift in terms of what you're hearing from your team, in terms of what's important to them. We'll kind of examine that and maybe some of the shadow and challenging sides of that, right? This is not always an easy conversation, right? Businesses are under lots of pressure at the moment. So how do we give stuff to people that they want, that's useful, that can be valuable? How do we have adult conversations with our teams in terms of what's the correct expectation to have, and then how businesses can approach well-being strategies? So some really practical stuff, and then we will do some Q&A at the end. So as we go, throw questions, like I said, into the Q&A chat box that you can access through the menu on the right-hand side, bottom right of the screen, and Sam and I will try and pick some of those up as we roll through.
I think something to add is what we'll try and do along the way is deal with grapple with the reality, how to do all of those things in a world of limited resources. I know everyone here cares about people, cares about what they deliver to their teams, and maybe in an ideal world you could do absolutely everything at all times for everyone who needs it. but we know that's not the reality of the situation. We are time poor, sometimes financially constrained by what we can offer. So how do you deliver the absolute best experience within those constraints? And that's something that I always try and do to the make it as practical as possible for things that you can take away for your business.
Yeah, and I'm very struck by, sometimes I sit on these kind of sessions myself, and lots of people talking about ideal situations and perfect worlds, and that's not where we are. That's not where any of us are, however much we'd like to think it is. And so it's that blend of realism that I think is super, super important. So what are we talking about? What's the the entire space and the categories that we think about, that there's a want, there's a need, there's a desire, there's also a requirement in some senses for us to consider in relation to how we support our team: financial, mental, physical, social, organizational, career growth, and purpose. And rather than kind of like define those for you, we don't need to teach anyone to suck eggs. I guess my question for you, Sam, is there's two parts to it. The first is there one of those that has been most important to you in your career? As you've been a founder, but also you've that either there's a life when you weren't a founder.
So it's a great question. These are all incredible categories. I think the area where I've personally experienced the most pain as an individual is probably in that fifth box, is organizational well-being. The times when I've been most miserable in a job is when the company was dysfunctional, where I had a boss who was making unrealistic expectations or not supporting me, not there for me. And I guess the purpose of this topic, we're going to talk about benefits, we're going to talk about the things that we can put in place. But the fundamental hygiene is creating an environment that people know that they're cared for. And we can then do manifestations of that. We can manifest that care through different products that we put in place, through different types of cover, through different types of initiatives, through mental well-being services, all of these incredible things that are then those physical manifestations of that care. But on a deep emotional level, and the times when I've been most pained at work is when I felt the bedrock wasn't there. I didn't feel like there was any genuine emotional care for me as a human being in my workplace, and I was kind of dispensable. And in fact, one time I got fired from a job with like basically no notice, and it's still painful, that experience, that feeling. And so organizational well-being, how well does your company function in terms of that underlying, do your team members know that they are cared for, that they are valued as human beings and as individuals? That sits at the bedrock. Then everything else is built on top. Then you can replace incredible programs supporting financial well-being and mental well-being and physical well-being and insurance and benefits and great polling tools and all the things that we can offer. Ultimately has to sit on a bedrock of, I care about you as a person, and you know that.
And then the second part to that question is, as you've been running Yulife, and we will come to some stats later on that show a little bit about how how society and how different generations are changing in terms of their profile of what's important to them. How have you seen the shift within your teams and the people that you work with on a day-to-day basis? You're a manager, right? You've got an org and a function that you're responsible for. Have you noticed a shift over the last couple of years in terms of like, this thing has become much more important than it was? What's your anecdote on that, I guess?
I mean, very much so. From a pragmatic perspective, the numbers of people who ask about like health insurance on a practical basis, that has really skyrocketed over the last 3-4 years. There's many different ways of manifesting your care for your team, but on the most deeply practical level, and it pains me, I believe in a social welfare construct of the state to some degree or another, but for many of my team, they really experience the need for the extra care that comes from having private health cover in place. And before we instituted it for the team, I got asked about it on like a weekly basis almost. And since we put it in place, I've heard time and time again how valuable it's been. A parent who's anxious about a child can book an appointment instantly. A colleague who needs to just like get something seen to or wants a second opinion. Those are things that the practical impact of having health insurance in place for our team has been massive. And I guess that falls in between the physical well-being and the mental well-being side of things, because it's not only for physical well-being appointments, also for mental health care as well. That support and the infrastructure that comes from having high quality healthcare has been really transformational for our business, and I know it is for many of our clients as well.
Yeah, and there's some great stats here that sort of talk about, I guess, the actual cost of some of this stuff.
Sure.
But I guess rather than just reading those off to people, which I think is maybe not the interesting question or the interesting point here, is more how you will and your team will spend time with business owners trying to convince them or speak to them about the value of what you do, right? And that third number there, right, that 547, the annual cost per employee to small businesses due to absenteeism, that's a relatively meaningful, sizable number. But go on.
No, I was about to say, finish your question. I was about to finish.
Yeah, I guess my question is, how much requirement is there for you to convince people that this is a problem? Or do you feel like businesses are kind of slightly sometimes ignoring this and going, oh, we'll just let's not think about it, let's forget about it?
You know what? It depends on who we're speaking to in the business. And this is a really interesting dynamic. And I know that you briefed me in advance, Ben, that a lot of people on this call, you guys are the decision makers. You guys are the ones looking after, you might be the COO, you might be the CEO, you might be the person responsible for the team. It depends. When we're speaking to someone who's hands-on, who is day-to-day experiencing the interactions with their team members and cares about it, they get it straight away. It is so obvious when you're speaking to a decision maker, somebody who is looking after people, looking after their team, and they're seeing people off sick. They're seeing people struggling with, healthcare challenges. They're seeing people feeling burnt out. And we come to them and have a conversation. The pain points are real, and they don't need any convincing about those pain points. What's tough is then finding the budget to do something about it. That can be really challenging, and we often work in creative ways with people, trying to find the right solution. How can they actually put something in place that matters, that's going to make a difference? But when I'm speaking to decision makers across businesses of all sizes, and it's people who are on the front lines, the challenge comes when you then go back to a CFO or someone who's a couple of steps away from the real experience of people working in the business on a day-to-day basis. That's when you can end up with people who don't feel it and don't see it in the same way. But in a small businesses, all you guys, I'm pretty convinced, if we sat down to have a 10-15 minute chat one-on-one, it would be so obvious what pain points you're experiencing and the challenges that you're experiencing, because I feel it myself with my team. It's hard. It's a tough world. Society is the people are struggling. And we see it as our responsibility to do our best to help. And I think anyone who has that front-facing role with people in their organization realizes what's going on right now. I don't know if you feel the same way, Ben. I mean, when you're talking to people, talking to your team, I don't know, how does that reflect?
Yeah, I think these things are never binary, and I think your experience day to day and week to week and month to month can shift and change. I think health insurance is something that we provide for our team, and that was a big shift and a big change for us. And like you say, it's not a small investment, right?
Yeah.
But it's a really important investment, and I think it goes to some of the things that you said there. It goes to often you're not just dealing with an individual, you're dealing and thinking about an entire family group, and you're thinking about how do we support that person in the context of their entire life, and how do we give them something that maybe takes some anxiety away from difficult situations. I think as much as possible, our jobs is to help people perform well in what they do. And life has a way of getting in the way of that often. And so if we can make that easier, then we should try and do that. With the caveat that it's, like you say, it's not always possible. And I think just because you can't do everything that you want to do doesn't mean you shouldn't do something.
Yeah.
Because an act of saying, hey, look, we care about this, we want to look after you from this perspective, it signals, hey, look, we're trying.
That's it.
There's an interesting link here in terms of when we think about retention and well-being in the workplace, and that stat that's pretty very sizable and really jumps out to you, which is 71% of employees who rate their workplace well-being as good aren't looking for new jobs. If you look at the last 4 years, we've been in like two very different worlds, right? 4 years ago, there was lots of transient movement of people across roles and industries and jobs.
Or Great Resignation chat. Do you remember that? That was like the topic of the moment. Everyone's leaving. What do we do about it?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now I feel like we're kind of in slightly we're an upside down world now, which is that actually the job market is not as hot as it was. And, you're seeing companies talk about actually, retention rates are improving. People are sticking in jobs, quiet quitting, all of those kind of annoying LinkedIn buzzwords, which I try and completely ignore and not get carried away with, but sometimes you've got to mention them. Have you seen that dynamic? And I guess, is it a crass way to think about well-being as just a retention tool? And is there a bigger, we're talking about performance there for a second. Is there a bigger question, a bigger challenge that we should be considering it in relation to?
I think this stat is good, and obviously we published it, it's a good stat, but I think the thing that speaks to at the heart of it, people perform better when they're feeling good about themselves. There's just no two ways about it. Right? When you've got someone who is feeling good and knows they're valued and feels that they're valued and feels that the company's looking after them, has all the ancillary support system in place, they do better at their job. They're able to be on it more, they're able to be more focused, they're able to drive better outcomes for the business. That means that they are more fulfilled, that means they want to stay, that means they enjoy work more. It's a really virtuous, self-reinforcing cycle. And when people feel burned out and people feel demotivated and people feel disenfranchised and they feel like they're not cared about and that they aren't the tools in place to support them, then they look to move. And ultimately, you can cut and chop that stat in different ways. We've all experienced that fundamental truth, though. If we can inspire people to do the best work of their lives, if we can support them on that journey, create a framework around them that gives them the scaffolding so that they can build high, we see success. And we see success for those individuals, they perform better, and that drives results for our business. That drives results in terms of retention, in terms of the profitability, all the things that we are seeking to work towards, and whilst actualizing whole human beings who feel good about what they're doing. That's what we're trying to drive for.
Yeah, and it's funny, there's a slightly messy middle in that, which I sometimes think about, or I sometimes get caught in, which is that, you can say that, and then someone turns to me and goes, yeah, well, of course, right? You're the CEO, you're the co-founder, Sam. Like, of course you want people to do good work because they're like, makes your life easier, right? And it enriches a company that you're responsible for, you're leading, right? And I think that to some degree that is true, but I think the thing that maybe we're not very good at talking about is that it's really, really good for everyone if company performance is in a good place. If we look after our customers well, if we look after our companies well, if we build a business that can thrive and therefore can survive the challenging moments as well as the great moments, we all benefit from that. We all benefit from the job security. We all benefit from the ability to invest in the things we want to invest in. But I think sometimes in the UK, because of our slight, we're sometimes not the best at talking about the things that we should talk about. I think we sometimes sort of shy away from that conversation a little bit. And actually, I think it's okay. And I don't know what your view on this is, to say, yeah, like business performance is a really important thing for me, and it should be a really important thing for everyone.
I think of it from that lens, and also from the lens of we spend a lot of time at work. Everyone spends a lot of time at work, whether it's 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever your timings might be. You're spending a lot of your day working. And if you're performing well during that time, if you're feeling good about yourself during that time, if you're happy with what you're achieving during that time, and ultimately see that it's building to something meaningful, you are going to be a lot happier and a lot more fulfilled than if you feel like you're grinding away at something, or just muddling along with something, not seeing the fruits from it, and not feeling engaged and inspired with it. That will be a drain on your well-being, and that is a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah, and Heidi made a great point in the chat just now, which is that leaders benefit also from these tools. And I speak from personal experience. There's a lot that we do at Charlie around this topic. One of them is a 9-day fortnight, which means every other Friday, I'm not working, and I get to spend that most of the time with my daughter, and that's awesome for her, or at least I hope it is.
Sure it is.
TBC on exactly what my dad's skills are at this point in time, but it's also really, really great for me and my well-being and how I feel about myself, and I think we shouldn't forget that stuff. You're exactly right, Heidi. I wanna jump to this slide, which is the top 3 most requested well-being support mechanisms. Quick question, Sam, have you got all of these at Yulife in some form? So I'm sure you've got number 3 in terms of health insurance, physical wellness programs, but those top 2, lots of working options and kind of wellness days, sabbaticals, that kind of stuff.
Clearly, like we are, we sell health insurance, we sell life insurance, we put in place wellbeing programs for businesses. We use that at Yulife. We have, that's something that's obviously baked into our DNA. Flexible working options is something that's really integral. We do that. We have people across the world in our business, people across the country. Our office doesn't even fit everyone in the company. So by definition, flexibility is built into it. We don't force people to come to the office. Ultimately, it's based on if you're delivering great output and you're contributing meaningfully to your team and your business, we don't really mind where you do that from. We have days where we expect people to come together to continue to build that company culture and company connectivity that sits at the heart of doing great work. If you don't know someone, you're not going to ask them for help. If you don't know someone, you're not going to tell them when they've upset you by a comment. But ultimately, the in-person human component is there to bolster the quality of the work, not as an end in and of itself, of like getting people into an office just because it makes me feel good to see everyone around me. That's not the point. So flexibility is certainly there. And then sabbaticals we've just put in place. Like there's different. We don't have your 9-day fortnight. I've shied away from that as yet. I don't know, maybe slightly old-fashioned, and we still think that 10 days of work gets you more output than 9 days of work. We can debate that one another time. But we certainly do have well-being days that people could take for their own. One a year or more if people need it, and sabbaticals as well. We actually do a digital detox 3-day retreat for your 3rd year anniversary at Yulife. You get a fully paid 3 days off as holiday, and it's a detox thing where you it's a lovely experience where people have really benefited being not just having the time away, but also without technology to weigh you down in that meantime.
And how do you set an example as a leader across all of these? Because one of the sometimes things that you see in an organization, I'm not suggesting that you do this, but is that it can feel difficult maybe in that leadership position to engage all the stuff that the company has to offer. Like how do you round that square around that circle?
From the flexible working perspective, I'm actually in the office 4.5 days a week, because other people come in and out, I want to always be there so that when people do come in, I see them. So I've chosen to be much more office-based than many of the team, just in order to provide that constant and ability to connect to people when they do come into the office. But from the disconnect time, thankfully, part of my weekly rhythm as an Orthodox Jew is that I've got to turn off my phone when the sun goes down on Friday. Come hell or high water, my phone goes off when the sun goes down on Friday, and I don't turn it on again until Saturday night. And that's something that that is built into the fabric of my week. People know that, people see that. But it's because it's a value of mine. For me, it's a religious obligation, but it's ultimately based on my fundamental values of putting emphasis on that part of my life. And I hope that the team see that and know that and realize that disconnecting in order to reconnect to other things, in order to reconnect to family, in order to reconnect to your values, to reconnect to your community, is an integral part of building a healthy, holistic working life. So they certainly see I do it in that context. I try and be really rigorous of making sure people, when they are off on breaks or on holiday, no one contacts them. People respect those boundaries, because it's really important. Healthy boundaries ultimately allow you to flourish as an individual. When you have messy boundaries and things encroaching at when they shouldn't, that doesn't allow for a holistically flourishing individual.
Very nice. Setting that example is not always an easy thing. I'm sure there is, and you talked about it just then, you're in the office, but the team have flexibility. There was this constant question of flexibility, and I feel like we're at a crossroads, and we might even actually be past that crossroads now. And how have you navigated that? And what are the types of discussions that you've had internally? And I think it's fair to say, like, those discussions are always relatively difficult. Has that been your experience as well? Like, people have raised, hey, we should get a bigger office and everyone should come in, or like, how have you
we actually haven't had that conversation around everybody should come in every day. That hasn't even been something that as a leadership team we floated. I don't think that would fit for our team. But I also don't think, even before COVID, for example, our sales team, many of them are distributed around the country because they serve different areas and regions. So there was already that distributed nature of sort of our sales and marketing efforts. Our engineers have always liked coding from home. So there was always a bit of that flexibility built into the system. And the last 3-4 years, we've sort of doubled down on that flexibility. And it hasn't really been a conversation around everyone should be in regular every day. What we have sought to build back a rhythm of is teams coming together on a set rhythm to build those human connections that sit at the heart of great collaboration. So all the marketing team comes in on a Wednesday, all of the sales team are in on certain days, and finding that rhythm and making sure it works for people. That's been something that we've put our focus into, rather than saying get a bigger office, get everyone in every day, bums on seats, 9 to 5. That's the way we're going to build this business. It's more been from a perspective of encouraging that human connection as part of the fabric of our business.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah, and if I should share from a Charlie perspective, we've not had that conversation either. And I think it can sometimes feel difficult to kind of have not had that conversation if it feels like everyone around you is having that conversation. But I think it's in those moments that you need to be really clear, as you kind of have done, as to like what you're optimizing for. One of the big things for us is the ability to hire people all across the UK.
Yeah.
That's a real advantage. And our customer base and what we really want to be is not just totally London centric, and we've worked really hard at that over the last couple of years to be able to serve like all small businesses. And it's really therefore important that our team is spread out across the UK, and we're kind of at the point now where that is the case, and we have people in Manchester and in Leeds and down in Bristol and Brighton and up in Scotland and over in Ireland, and that's helping us to be a more rounded organization. So it is about where people are working, but I think it's also about who are the types of people you're trying to hire, who do you want in your organization, who do you need, the factor into it as well.
Very much so. Very much so.
Paddy's going to run up a quick poll while we keep talking, so expect that to pop up on your screens. You see a little invite down on the right hand corner. Please click it. The question we want to ask is, what well-being benefits does your team value most? I've been really interested to see if the good people we got on the call today, in the session today, if it kind of matches some of the numbers that have come out of the report that Yulife did with YouGov. I guess over the last couple of years, last 3 years probably, economic uncertainty has slightly reshaped employee expectations and needs, Sam. We've been through, especially in the UK, we've been through a period of like incredible inflation, and that seems to have cooled off over the last 12 months, which is great. But it definitely feels like, job security, comp, all of that kind of stuff has risen to the surface.
Sure.
And I don't think we need to debate that necessarily, but I think maybe the harder question that is underneath this is, partly as a company, there's a lot of that we can't control. We don't control the Bank of England's fiscal policy. We can't control what we can't control what the fact that we had an energy crisis because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We can't control that Trump's going to wake up one morning and decide, hey, we're doing tariffs. And this is, I was with someone this morning and they were saying, well, our American business basically has dropped off a cliff. Wow. Because people have just decided to stop buying products that are coming in from outside of America. There's a lot of that we can't control. And I do feel like this line that a business has to walk is a difficult one. And I guess my question to you is kind of how much responsibility should we take? How much responsibility do we take? Is there an easy answer to that question?
I think ultimately you can't lie to people. You need to be honest and genuine and vulnerable, but to let them know that you are doing your absolute utmost to guarantee their job security, and that when you're making responsible decisions as a business to create the best outcomes for them as individuals, as well as obviously for your customers and for your shareholders, but that your responsibility is to all of those groups, and that you're trying to create a business that is sustainable for the long term and can weather those challenges. Sometimes you do have to make hard decisions. It's grim. You might need, let's say your US business drops off a cliff and your revenues are slashed by 20%. It might be that you need to let people go. And that would be a heartbreaking decision to have to make. But if you're communicating it, to be able to do that in a way that reassures the people who are still in the business, the reason for your decision, that you're doing it to create a sustainable business that will give them the security for the long term, and to be compassionate in how you go about making those decisions, and in looking after the people who you do have to let go. It's a really tough situation, and we see it countless times with our customers, that they are grappling with those things, in real life, and being able to be honest and genuine and as open and transparent as you can be as to the reasons why you're making those different decisions and how it's going to impact them in the long term is really important. So no one size fits all answer there, and it really is something that we are seeing time and time again that our customers are grappling with.
Yeah, and I really want to pull out what you kind of said there in terms of honesty and openness, in the sense that I think the worst thing that we can do is kind of, as leaders, is obfuscate and sort of act one way and say another thing. And I would say, the worst mistakes that I've made as a leader have been when I've been too scared to say something, or I've been worried about saying something because of maybe how sort of maybe doom and gloom it is, or how difficult it will be for people to hear. And I think I've definitely avoided saying stuff because I've been worried, that's not going to feel very nice to people. But I think it is much, I've learned the sort of longer I've done this, that it's much more important to have your actions line up with what you say. And I think often protecting people or thinking, I'm not going to be as clear and honest as I maybe should be because I'm worried about what people are going to think. Ultimately, I think that just hurts people further down the line.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we've certainly felt that internally, and it definitely does shape the benefits that people are looking for as well. This is a talk about how to retain and attract the top talent when they meet you, when they meet the company, and they know that you are going to do your best. The employee contract, the fundamental exchange of value is you work to do your best for the business. I work as the business to support you to create the framework where you can thrive and balance the needs of you and your thriving with the success of the company, and do my best to grapple with that tension. When businesses get it wrong is the employee is doing their share of the bargain, which is working for the success of the business, but the business owner isn't keeping up their side of the bargain and is only thinking about external stakeholders, not their internal stakeholders.
Yeah. Yeah, and to the point of attracting talent, I think just to pull out something that I've seen, as part of interviews over the last couple of years is people are asking much more sort of questions in interviews about how financially stable is the company, whether it's runway or it's investment or it's backing or it's have they got are they profitable? All those kinds of things, I think, are more and more becoming things that employees want to ask and they want to know. So, and I think it's much better to genuinely treat those potential candidates as adults, be honest, be as open as you can be, obviously without sharing stuff that you kind of shouldn't share or can't share. So that what they feel is not necessarily, oh, Ben and Charlie have got it all figured out. No, Ben and Charlie are just being honest about what the lay of the land is. And I'd rather be somewhere where we're being honest about what the lay of the land is versus, someone that's being shady or a company that's kind of trying to hide behind, lots of stuff, but actually it's just smoke and mirrors.
Yep.
Cool. We're going to do another quick poll. The answer, so you can see that kind of notification that's just popped up on your screen. From the first poll, the benefit that came out top was flexible working, maybe not a massive surprise there. Work-life balance came in second, which I guess encompasses a few areas. And then, health and well-being came in third, so kind of matching a little bit of what's in that data there. So that gives you some confidence, Sam. But the second question, what's the biggest driver of talent leaving your company?
Interesting.
So obviously companies are made up of a multitude of different people. And so these next two slides and the two stats here kind of talk a little bit about how different generations perceive the importance of different things. So this first one, Gen Z is 10% more likely than baby boomers to say they strongly agree that their well-being at work matters as much as their salary. And then this second one is much more about the entire team. So giving your team the tools. More than half of employees with wellness programs say that they have time to take care of their well-being, but only 27% of employees without wellness programs can say the same.
Wow.
How do you help support businesses who maybe are saying to you, look, we've got this particular cohort of employees, especially maybe the larger businesses you're working for, where maybe this is more obvious and more of a sizable challenge. We've got this particular cohort of employees that really care about this one thing, and maybe we've got this other cohort that care about it in a bit of a different way. Are the strategies that you're implementing, all things to all people, or is it a bit more of a kind of smorgasbord and you can pick and choose the type of things that you're rolling out in the organization? So you've got, a breadth of offerings that suit the different cohorts within the company.
It's a great question, and I mean, a little bit of a plug. This really sits to the heart of what we try and deliver is turnkey, all-in-one well-being and benefit solution for companies. That is what we deliver, and we see it so commonly. Oh, these guys, they wouldn't want this particular benefit because it's not relevant to them. But they're really, really into health insurance. These people really want mental health support. This cohort are really worried about something like income protection. What, God forbid, what happens if I can't work, or I might lose my rent, or I might lose my mortgage? Those are the different challenges. And when we are working with a business, the fact that we have those modular different elements of our solution and that we can plug into solving different problems, different pain points for different cohorts within a business is really important. And I see it all day, every day, that there are different demographics. But the challenge is, and this is where it gets tricky, is what people are thinking about and what people want isn't always necessarily the same thing that they need. If you ask somebody what they want, they might say, I want flexible working, as the poll on the right-hand side suggests. People want flexible working. That's great. It's so true. It's so important. And then at the same time, so you as a business might choose to invest in flexible working. That's great. Then somebody, God forbid, has a physical health problem, a mental health problem, can't work for 6 months. And you say, sorry, we don't have any income protection in place because no one said they wanted it. That's not a good answer in that moment. People don't know what the job of the employer is, the hard part to give people what they want, but also in some instances to look out for what people really need. And that responsibility is a challenging one, to give people what they want, but also looking out for what they need and doing that responsible thing. And sometimes the government legislates, the government legislated that everyone had to contribute to a pension because not enough people were contributing to their pension. And now everybody has to contribute to a pension because the government put in place legislation that supported businesses looking after people's long-term financial security. And the same is true in benefits to some extent. And it's the job of a great company, a responsible company, to think about how can we look after the whole person, not just in the moment, but also thinking about the eventualities of what might happen in the future. How can we protect them? How can I protect their family? And create a structure as an employer that looks after the whole person for the long term.
Yeah, and just to put out there, I really think that the one of the key things that you were saying there was the job of an employer, the job of a leader is to kind of listen and assimilate what they're hearing from across their organization. So, and it's not always listening and acting. It's not always saying, oh, this person says they want this, therefore we should do X. It's that real skill of, can we hear all this information? Can we gather it? Can we then assimilate what are the sort of trends that are coming out from that, rather than being, I think, whiplash in approach. So yeah, as ever, it's the simple things or the things that sound simple, which are the hardest things to do. Final poll, biggest blocker for launching wellbeing initiatives within your organization. That pop-up is there. Take a moment, hit that. Give us your answer. We'll share all the results afterwards. And we're getting to the kind of back end now. So also, if you have a question, chuck it in the chat, and I'll make sure that Sam and I pick it up. We will absolutely not run over. I'm going to make sure that we even finish probably 5 minutes early, so everyone's got a bit of time to grab a water or a coffee before their next event. I know everyone's time poor, so we got to be very, very respectful of that. What I kind of want to focus on, I want to finish on, and definitely go and read the report that Yulife have produced. But wanted to kind of finish on and summarize with, I guess, some implementation steps, some things that you can start to do, some questions at least that you can start to ask to tackle this idea of well-being within your organization, really from the lens of, how do we make sure we can continue to attract the people that we need? And how can we make sure that we keep those best people that are key to our business within the business? And really 3 areas that I kind of wanted to talk through. The first is understanding who you're building your policy for, to sort of what we were just discussing. Understanding the context. I think the context of the business and the context of the world around you. And the third is leadership buy-in. So on that first point, in terms of understanding, who you're building for, when you're working with a business, Sam, is it, we're going to run a poll, we're going to do some interviews? How would you suggest a business with limited resources, time poor, gets an understanding of who's in their company and maybe what some of their needs and requirements are? And I'm not talking about going out with a survey and going, what benefits do you want? Like, how do you ask these questions in a really useful and practical way?
So the thing that I've seen works best is, and this is a tool that's used across social science research. I'm not, we didn't just make this up for internal conversation. If you sit down with 1 or 2 people and just have a really thoughtful conversation about what they're experiencing in their life. So going deep and thoughtful in my experience, really beats shallow surface level insight. And I pick 2 or 3 people, and I've encouraged my people leaders to do this. Pick 2 or 3 people and interview them for half an hour, for 40 minutes. What do you actually struggle with? What do you actually want? What could the business, and imagine in a world where you could wave a magic wand, we could do anything for you. What would we actually do? What would that look like? And asking those open questions of how could the business support you more, and picking 2 or 3 people rather than shallow surface level insight from everyone, deep, thoughtful insight from a few people, and then finding people who are representative of different demographics in the business, obviously, and then extrapolating outwards from there. So you might say, well, I haven't asked everyone, but if you understand those people on a thoughtful level, you will find that you can generate from that the insight that will help drive the rest of your strategy. And this is indeed, that's what social scientists do, right? They don't, they interview, they do deep dive interviews with specific individuals, and they use that to unlock insight into the state of a population. So I would always encourage really thoughtful and meaningful questions, and listening, being open to hearing. And then you hear what their problems are, and it could be dealing with their aging parents, or it could be grappling with their children's health problems, or it could be the fact that it's impossible to get to XYZ meeting because it happens at a time when they're supposed to be doing the school run, or it could be people sending emails at crazy times, or all of these different things that people may or may not be experiencing. If you listen properly and really are open to those answers, you'll help build a well-being strategy that speaks to people in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Super actionable, and you can apply that at any company size, and that's what's brilliant about that. I think having a well-being strategy or having a view on well-being as a business is not something that has to be just for a company that's 500, 250, 700, 1,000 employees. We can all do that, whether it's 5 of us in a room, or 30 of us in a room, or 50 of us in a room. We can all have a view.
And if anyone wants help thinking about that, thinking about what they want to put in place for their team, what wellbeing services, what benefits they might want, our team are really happy to help. No obligation to buy anything from Yulife at the end of it. Really, we're just happy to help you talk through the problems, understand your company more, and our team are really on hand to support that. So if anyone does want to reach out to Yulife, we are there to support that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I've got a nice clear call to action on that at the end. The second one is kind of understanding the context of the business and the world around you. And I think there's 2 parts to this. A, what's going on in the world, but also, where is your business? Is it scaling? Is it got loads of funding? Who are the type of people you're trying to attract? And sometimes those things don't necessarily match up with exactly what you want to do. And how have you, Sam, as Yulife has evolved from being a startup with a couple of you sitting around a table, to where you are today? How have you evolved the way that you've done things based on how the context of the business has changed?
It's a great question. We've really had to evolve this. We have to be much more thoughtful now, because also when you've got more people, anything you do put in place becomes that much more expensive. When there's 10 of you, it's much more easy to be flexible. Everyone, you have that deep level of trust and connection to everyone around the business, and we still have that level of trust, but you need to create systems and create a structure and create a program that works for everyone. So it has been a really hard journey of me not just being able to say, great, I can do anything I like, it's my company, woo, it's party, let's do what we do, create the absolute utopic idea of what I wish a business could be like. We have to be more pragmatic and constantly grapple with it, but the beauty is in the struggle. You can never give up and just let something turn into the kind of corporate mush that we all hate. And the reason why we all work in small businesses is because it does create that humanity and intimacy, and that's really something that is never a simple journey.
And then final actionable insight. I'm sure many people on the call, on the webinar, have got to go and convince and make cases, be that to other people in the exec, other co-founders, other people in their leadership team. What's the best way to do this?
Business case. Use the language of high performance. It's about creating a strong business case. We do this. This is why we're doing it. And this is the return on investment. These are the outcomes that we're driving. And here's how it impacts our bottom line. The costs that we save, saving money on rehiring people if they leave because they're burnt out. You can create clear, actionable, financial driven business cases to support wellbeing initiatives. It is not airy-fairy. It is not wishy-washy. This drives business success, and that can be proven. And if you articulate it in the right way, you will get buy-in.
Amazing. Cool. And I'm going to kind of wrap this up there. If you want more information on Yulife, please take a screenshot of the QR code there. 2 actions for everyone. The first one is, if you would, as Sam said, if you'd like to speak to the Yulife team, and you're not already in contact with them, and get some insights as to how you could be thinking about things, just email me, right? My email is ben@charliehr.com. And I'll happily introduce you to some of the great team there. I'm very happy to make sure that you're looked after. But yeah, they've got lots of great advice to give. So that's as easy as it is. Just ben@charliehr.com, and I'll make sure that you're looked after. The second is, if you are a Charlie customer and you're on the platform and you want to see, other great partners that care about small businesses, do go look in our marketplace. Everyone that's on there is vetted. They're partners that we trust. They're people that we know. That's really, really important, right? People that we can pick up the phone to, people that we understand, people that know we're invested in what it means to be a small business and thrive as a small business. So go have a look what we've got there. There's lots of great partners. You get great discounts, great service from them because you're a Charlie customer. But ultimately, thanks so much for joining today and listening and engaging. And thank you to Sam for...
And Dan, really always a pleasure. Lovely to have this conversation, and look forward to more. All right.
Cheers everyone. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.